Good morning and good evening to everyone. So let us begin, as we always begin, with the opening recitations. Dala dhawa jebe dra no par jebe ke tharpa dhan tham je kempe baridu chopra jeba tham je gyusu jebe ma nang ka dang nyampe sanchen tham je dewa dhan den tungyang dang de nudu lana me pa yang da pra sope chanchu rinpo je to pra dala dhawa jebe dra no par jebe ke tharpa dhan tham je kempe baridu chopra jeba tham je gyusu jebe ma nang ka dang nyampe sanchen tham je dewa dhan den tungyang dang de nudu lana me pa yang Dabra sobe chanju rinpo je dobra jo dala dhawa jebe dra no par jebe ke tharpa dhan tham je kempe baridu jebara tham je gyusu jebe ma nang ka dang nyampe sanchen tham je dewa dhan den tungyang dang de nudu lana me pa yang dabra sobe chanju rinpo je Tobra de sama gege bardu longa yesum gewala ko mashi bardu longa yesum gewala ko de derene sunde nama santa samji bardu longa yesum gewala ko sanje jodan soje jonam la chanju bardu dane gebse Dage junso gebe sonang ke drola pencher sanje drupra shu sanje jodan sage jonam la chanchu bardu dhane gyabse che dage junso gebe sonang ke drola pencher sanje drupra shu sanje jodan sage jonam la chanchu bardu dhane gyabse che dage junso gebe sonang ke Drola pencher sanje drupra shu manang kadang nampe sanchen tamje dewa dang dewe gendan dampra gyurje dungyang dang dungyang ki gyudan drawa gyurje dungyang mepe dewa dang me gyurje nering chadang nidang drawe tangyang lan hebra gyurje manang kadang nyampe sanchen tamje dewa dang dewe gendan dampra gyurje dungyang dang Dungyao ki kyudan drawa gyurji, dungyao mepe dewa dhamme drawa gyurji, niring chadang nidang drawa tangyong la napra gyurji, manang kadang nyampe sanchen tamje dewa dang, dewe gyundan dampra gyurji, dungyao dang dungyao ki kyudan drawa gyurji, dungyao mepe dewa dhamme drawa gyurji, niring chadang nidang drawa Tangyong la nebra gyurje. Then the seventh branch in the different languages, in the different language room. In all the worlds of the 10 directions reside Tathagatas of the 3 times. Before each of you, lions among humans, I prostrate joyfully with body, speech, and mind. By the power of this aspiration to know Bodhis, all conquerors appear vividly in my mind with as many bodies as there are atoms in all lands. I prostrate to all you conquerors. In each atom of Buddhas, numberless as atoms, all in the midst of the heirs of the Buddhas. Thus I conceive of this Dharma Dhatu as completely filled with you conquerors in this way, with infinite oceans of praise and oceans of diverse melodies. I sing the excellent qualities of you conquerors, and praise all of you gone to bliss, with the best flowers and best garlands, music, best music, ointments, and excellent parasols, finest lamps, and superior incense. I offer to you conquerors, with excellent garments and best fragrances, and sandalwood powder heap high as Mount Meru. All wondrous offerings perfectly arranged I offer to you conquerors. These vast and unequal offerings to each and every one of you conquerors. With the power of conviction and noble deeds I prostrate and offer to all you conquerors. All the harmful deeds that I have done with my body, speech, and mind, under the power of desire, hatred, and ignorance, I confess each and every one of them. I rejoice in all the meritorious deeds of all conquerors in the tender actions, and the heirs of the Buddha, solitary realizers, hearers, still in training and beyond, and all wandering beings. You who are lamps of the worlds of the tender actions, who have unobstructedly attained Buddhahood through the stages of Bodhi. All you who are my protectors, please turn the unexhaled wheel of Dharma. With palms together, I earnestly beseech you, who may intend to manifest final nirvana. Please remain for as many eons as there are atoms in the world, for the happiness and well-being of all wandering beings. Whatever slight virtue that may have been gathered through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, I now dedicate to complete Bodhi. This ground sprinkled with scented waters and strewn with flowers, adorned with the supreme mountain, four continents, sun and moon, I hold in my mind as a Buddha land and offer it. May all wandering beings experience such a pure land. To the Gurus who possess the three kayas, I offer the outer, inner, secret, and thusness offerings. With my body, wealth, and all phenomenal existence, please grant the unsurpassed supreme attainment. Whatever slight virtue I may have gathered through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, I now dedicate it to complete awakening. Om Guru Deva Dhakini Namandala Pratitya Soha. Please turn the wheel of Dharma of the greater, lesser, and common vehicles in accordance with the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings. Dorje Chanchen Dele Naroda Mamita Popadoji Denkun Kandensun Densa Vela Mesham Sajula Mayidam Chokyola Soba Desunda Jijinjilo Gerenge Domezan and Genda Pedosun Yola Kelso Mega Wadoji Jamba Jidenkun Bushabla do Tatu Sangi Kyoleme Jinjilo Jitu Jijinenge Mubazan Nagel Centro de Dobra Jinjilo Hong Jinja Jino Johnson Bemagisa Tompola Yasen Joking or Dumye Pema June Jeshoda Kodo Kando Mampuko Gege Jason Tado Gejilo Jeshuzo Guru Bema Sude Ome Joking Gimpoda Nedison Saja Kunjing of 1 year Rasin Chogon Sun Tonseba Savela Meshala Zoa. So we continue with verse 104 in the chapter on Kshanti. Yeah, so again, we should keep in mind, yeah. So, like the reason why I use Kshanti rather than patience or forbearance is because Kshanti covers a range of meanings that go beyond our usual use of the word patience. So please, go back and review what we have, in case you've forgotten what I'm talking about when I say that, patience or Kshanti covers a range of meanings beyond our usual use of the word patience. Also, then, Kshanti is said to be, in particular, an antidote towards this thing called, in Sanskrit, dvesha, which is dosha in Pali, which is, again, usually translated as anger and ill will. But again, dvesha covers a range of meanings beyond our usual anger. So if you recall, I talked about, the loud anger that we are familiar with, but there's also the quiet anger. And in some ways, as always, I think the Buddha's teachings are most interesting, profound, whatever word you want to use, when you see that it's not so much what's on the surface level that he points out that is really so profound, really so insightful. It's really on the very minute, we might think of as minute level. It's on that level what he is pointing out that we need to, really appreciate and see on that level. And that is important because the way the Buddha explained, kind of like, if you want to say, his realization is centered on this idea, on this concept that we call interdependence. And with interdependence, what we're talking about then, immediately, several things come into play. Is that, therefore, all things, whether physical things or mental, emotional things, they are all composites, they are all compounded. And when they are compounded from parts. And these parts are further divided into parts. And those parts are further divided into parts, and so on and so forth, ad infinitum, goes on and on, all these small little parts. And if we don't understand what is actually going on in the smallest of these little parts, if we cannot see how issues like Kshanti, issues like dvesha, on the minutest parts, what is going on there, then we are not really like reaching, plumbing to the depths of what the Buddha has realized and is pointing us towards seeing. So anyway, right now we are coming towards the end of this chapter on Kshanti. And so keep in mind that in this particular section, which is the section from page 90 to 111, in Kemo Kunbel's commentary, he says that this is the section where we are to exercise Kshanti towards those who obstruct us, those who stand in the way of us reaching what we want, reaching what we desire. And then also earlier on, we in this chapter, I briefly call your attention to how in this Khenpo Kumbel's commentary, he identifies the different people that stand in our way, like the objects in which we should practice Kshanti towards. Basically, so he goes into how those who obstruct us, those who support our enemies, that means those who support our obstructors, and those who obstruct our loved ones. And then he does some sort of math where, that becomes 12, and 12 is multiplied by 2, and 24. The point is there is a lot of different categories of beings that if we are not skillful, we can get caught up in a web of having resentment, having anger, having annoyance, or the whole range, right? From murderous thoughts to simply in your mind wishing this person will disappear. So he, helps us by discussing 24, 12, all of that. Basically, it's saying, be vigilant about, how easily resentment and annoyance. So the anger, right, the dvesha, in its more basic level, is just simple annoyance. Simple annoyance. And then simple annoyance, if we don't attend to it, or if we're not even aware, forget about attending to it, if we're not even aware that how pervasive these little annoyances are, then one little annoyance meets another little annoyance, and then faster than rabbits, they're going to multiply. Now, please remember that the solution is not, okay, don't be annoyed, right? So earlier in this chapter, in that section that I said, that one quote that is quoted so often, and I quote that also, the one that says, if the problem or whatever you're annoyed with, whatever you're worried with, can be solved, then there's no point being annoyed. And if it cannot be solved, then no amount of being annoyed with it, worried over it, will solve it. Right? That famous quote. And I said that until recently, I did not really see how that verse itself is not very useful to quote. More useful to quote are the two verses before, right? Because the two verses before really show us like how to get to this verse. And so there's a causal relationship between the verse before and the verse that is often quoted. The verse that is often quoted is the result of understanding the verse before and practicing the verse before. So this is our situation. So we are so impressed and so attracted by a being like, the Dalai Lama or Thich Nhat Hanh or, our personal teachers and wow, then that verse, if you cannot solve the problem, no point getting annoyed. If you can solve the problem, no point getting annoyed. And, you think, oh, these great beings. And then you think, oh, if only I keep thinking like that, right? I'm also going to become like these great, examples. That is, longing for the fruit and not planting the seeds. Never the results will come. At best, being inspired by these examples would soothe the pain that we are experiencing, would soothe it temporarily, but the pain will keep occurring if we don't pay attention to the causal aspect of that equation. And so again, if you forgot what I'm talking about, go back to those when we discussed that section. And by the way, in case you forgot, all of these are posted on the YouTube channel. Maybe Omar or I think, Javier is getting into action. I can see he'll post it on the chat. And if someone is on Facebook who knows our YouTube channel, post it on the Facebook comments too, so people can go to this particular playlist. Linda also shared the specific recording, which is August 28th. Thank you. So this is talking about verse 10, that famous verse. Then 7, 8, 9 really gives you the cause of how 10 can be experienced. So please, again, review that. If you don't know how to practice 7, 8, 9, and you go around hoping that 10 will happen, then you get even more annoyed. Because every time when problem comes and you cannot experience 10, you get very annoyed. You say, how come this is not working, this Dharma? Or even if we're not skillful, when people are worried and people are upset, we tell them, we, with our halos, quote verse 10, the person that is suffering, they will just think, what a jerk, Yes, you are holy. Yes, you are all wise and you are all great Bodhisattva, but you telling me that is not really going to help. So if we're really going to help, the less fancy words in verse 7, 8, and 9 is the cause for experiencing 10. So again, when we understand the fundamental view of this Buddha's realization, fundamentally what Buddha realized is what we call interdependence. Interdependence then is cause and effect. And this understanding of interdependence and cause and effect is also the reason why sometimes it's said that Buddhism is not a theistic religion, a God-based religion. Now, this is not about, having quarrels with other religion. This is not about criticizing what other religions are up to. Here, when we say this is not a God-based religion, actually a better way of saying that is to say, this is not a religion or this is not a spiritual path where we think that how things come to be and how we experience them is arbitrary. Arbitrary means no cause and effect, or random cause and effect. So why do we say that if you believe in God, it's arbitrary? What we mean by that is then you think, the cause of your happiness or suffering is somewhere out there, and all you have to do is to figure out how to please and not upset some power out there, then, you're fine. So that's, Buddha says, that's mistaken cause and effect. You cannot blame God, your parents, whoever, for your own suffering. Not that we say you should blame yourself. Blaming yourself is not also not going to solve any problems, but to be able to see the interdependent nature of happiness and suffering, the cause and effect of these things. So again, this is just a reminder, as whenever we read these inspiring teachings, we cannot forget what is already understood, what needs to be the ground level of understanding, which is cause and effect, which is interdependence. Then you get fancier, you have terms like, emptiness, then Buddha nature, blah, 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 all those things. But those terms, sometimes can mislead us, because it gets so mysterious. And then this is what Christians call, worshiping false gods. Forgetting, what is at the heart. At the heart is interdependence, cause and effect. So now let's read verses 104 and to 111. If something does not come to be when something else is absent and does not arise, that factor being present, that factor is indeed its cause. How can it then be said to hinder it? The beggars who arrive at proper times are not an obstacle to generosity. We cannot say that those who give the vows are hindrances to ordination. The beggars in this world are numerous, assailants are comparatively few. For if I do no harm to others, others do no injury to me. So like a treasure found at home that I have gained without fatigue, my enemies are helpers in my Bodhisattva work, and therefore they should be a joy to me. Since I have grown in patience thanks to them its first fruits I should give, for of my patience they have been the cause. And if I say to my foes, if I say my foes should not be honored, since they did not mean to stimulate my patience, why do I revere the sacred Dharma, cause indeed of my attainment? These enemies conspired to harm me, I protest, and therefore should receive no honors. But had they worked to help me like a doctor, how could I have brought forth patience? Thanks to those whose mind are full of malice, I engender patience in myself. They therefore are the causes of my patience, fit for veneration like the Dharma. Yeah, so in this section, 104 to 111, I mean, to be honest, like most of us reading this section, if we are if we are in a very good mood and we're feeling very, kind of in the clouds, we read this section, then it becomes really inspiring, when things are going really well, when everybody is praising us and liking us. And so again, our halo and our wings are all healthy and bright, then we can kind of just fly around and say, oh yeah, my enemies, they are so kind to me, blah, 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 But if the day started off with, like you have prepared your coffee, you look in the fridge and somebody else finished your milk. And now your coffee that you always drink with milk is only half a beverage of what you like. And then that causes you to get annoyed. And then because of that annoyance, you are running late. You try to go get in your car to go to work if anybody ever leaves their house again these days. And you can't find your keys. One thing leads to another. Before long, like 104 to 111 will sound kind of ridiculous. Supposedly rejoicing in how your enemies are helping you. Yeah, right now, my family members are annoying me. Forget about my enemies. Right? So, this is just kind of an honest response to 104 and 111. So be careful not to let, like this grandeur, to be kind of feeling good, right? Like I suspect, if you're sitting here on a Saturday morning or Saturday evening and attending these teachings, you're in a pretty good state of mind and you're like very feeling, oh yes, this is good. It's good to feel like that, but remember that, figuring out how to apply this when it really matters is where the real work is, right? So then it might start with something to say, I would say, like it's okay to admit, that what is said in 104 and to verse 111 sounds a little bit ridiculous to me right now, but I can be inspired by it, and I'm inspired by it, by these verses. Then, start small, right? So in a way, you could say, yeah, Shantideva is exaggerating here to make a point. This is not out of disrespect for Shantideva, but just saying how I need to kind of process this. So he's exaggerating, but his exaggeration is based on reason. And that's key to understand. This is not the exaggeration of talking about, magical things, flying in the air and, manifesting, 1,000 bodies in 1,000 different locations, things like that. This exaggeration is based on reason. And so this is how he's going to reason with us. Right? He says, so 104, he says, so when you think about it, if in the absence of this thing, that thing will not be there, then the first thing is to be understood as the cause for the second thing. So in the absence of a father and a mother, right, a child doesn't turn up. So then the father and the mother is the cause for the existence of the child. So here, Shantideva says, how can you then say the father and the mother is the hindrance to the child. It's not. Without the father and the mother, the child will not turn up. So likewise, the sources of annoyance is the cause for the arising of Kshanti. Kshanti here, again, unlike the way we ordinarily think about patience, Kshanti is based on understanding. It's not just blind faith endurance. It's not suppression. Which also tells us that simply because we have understanding doesn't mean, it will all be easy. You still have to forbear. That's another translation for Kshanti, to forbear, to be able to bear. So there is still weight, especially since we're not Buddhas yet. There's still weight to the situation. But now you are bearing this weight based on understanding. Right? Ordinary patients lack this understanding. So 105 says, gives like two examples. One is, so because beggars turn up, because needy people turn up, therefore you can practice generosity. You can cultivate generosity, openness of heart, and hands. So how can you say beggars then are hindrances? You would not say that, and normally we don't. Likewise, the preceptors who give vows, they are the cause for the arising of vows in us. So we cannot say then the preceptors, those who give precepts, are, the obstacle to our having the precepts. Likewise, here he's saying, those who block our desires, we should not say that they are threats to our patience. In fact, they are the cause, or they are the necessary cause for patience to be cultivated, for Kshanti to be cultivated. Now we might say, oh no, like, no, I don't say that, I don't say, like conditions that are not, conditions that are not in agreement is an obstacle to my patience. You're like, I don't say that. Actually, we do, we will say things like, hey, like we like sternly look at someone and say, hey, I'm about to lose my patience, Actually, you never had the patience in the first place. Because, when the situation gets difficult, you say, I'm going to lose my patience now. I'm losing my patience with you. It's like, no, in the first place, there is no Kshanti going on, because we see, right, the obstacle, so-called, when in fact, Shantideva said, they are not the obstacle. They only become obstacle because you don't understand what they are. In fact, they are the cause of your Kshanti arising, or for you to cultivate, to encourage Kshanti. And so he's urging us to reconsider how we regard these so-called obstacles. If we are able to skillfully kind of, understand, oh, this is really, I mean, it's sort of like, one example would be this. If a flame, if a fire is really small, yes, wind is an obstacle. But once the fire has the right conditions to catch, wind can make the fire bigger, consume the fuel more hungrily. So at first, yes, they say when you first are just cultivating this Kshanti, yeah, don't try to put yourself, in situations that will just cause you to lose your patience, so to say. But at a certain point, you cannot keep running to those places that doesn't cause that and think I have Kshanti. You don't have Kshanti. You just remove yourself. You just run away from those conditions. So that's not going to work, You cannot keep running away and think, oh, I'm so peaceful. It's so peaceful because, you put yourself in situations that doesn't bring about these conditions. But rather, Shantideva here is saying, you begin to relate to unfriendly conditions differently, then they become the winds that will not put out this flame of Kshanti, but in fact will cause Kshanti to grow. And in fact, if you're really skillful, even if when you lose perspective and annoyance arise, if you are able to look at the annoyance and understand, actually, even this annoyance that I'm feeling towards this person right now, right? So then there's the obstacle of this person who took all the milk that I want from my coffee. Then on top of that, second level, now like, and you get annoyed. Then now you recognize annoyance has turned up.
If you're really skillful, both these objects can serve to increase Kshanti. Even the annoyance, if you're able to look and say, look at that. Oh, thank you, annoyance. Now I can bear this. So the first one is more external. The second one is in the context of training the mind, what we might call meditation. And so that these mental states that arise, that are burdensome, that are heavy. Yes, it's great if they don't arise at all. And it's great if when they arise, we can sweep them away. But a lot of times they arise too late, created the causes, so they have arisen. Then they have arisen, then we cannot get rid of them. But even at that point, if we know how to relate to these heavy, burdensome, feelings that have come up, and then in that moment, use that as fuel for your Kshanti, then even that can be used. So this is what they mean when they say, take anger onto the path, take jealousy onto the path. It's meaning how to use them when they have already turned up. And use them to grow, in this case, Kshanti. Right now, when mental defilements turn up, right? So forget about the external obstructors, yeah? Maybe yeah, delivered by the external obstructors. But when mental defilements turn up right now, for the most part, we are just like mindlessly being buried by the weight of mental defilements. And in the state of being mindlessly buried and burdened by mental defilements, we create more mental defilements. But when we have understanding, when we have some understanding about cause and effect, interdependence, Buddha's pointing out, when we have some understanding and recognition of that, when mental defilements turn up, then we have the opportunity to skillfully bear, forbear, we can, kashanti, we can skillfully, with kashanti, hold those mental defilements. And now this mental defilements that have already turned up can become fuel for burning this kashanti. So what that means is like, you know, the defilements that have already turned up, you know, not to feed them, not to let them be the cause for more sowing of the seeds that will ripen in more suffering and more dukkha, but you also experience the weight of this burden that will fire your resolve to not be enslaved by this burden. Then as you forbear this, and more insight will turn up, will be because all these factors of enlightenment, sometimes called factors of enlightenment or factors of awakening, of which there are 7, and so there are all these lists. All these factors, right? They work together. Just as suffering has its causes and conditions, happiness have its causes and conditions. Once one member of the committee arrives, the other members tend to also arrive, so to say. Whether it's the committee of happiness or the committee of suffering. Once one comes in, they bring their whole family. So likewise, when we know, kashanti, if you are able to forbear with skill the annoyances that have turned up, forbear the person who brought the annoyance, forbear the annoyance that you yourself has given rise to, then with skill, this will lead to freedom from being burdened by that which we do not like. And so 106 continues with the theme of the beggar. It says, the beggars in this world, they are numerous, but those who are assailants compared to beggars are relatively few. So this is based on the idea, right, that the thought experiment that he took us through earlier. He says how if you are someone who today you wake up and you say, today I want to give away $1,000, and or today I want to feed 1,000 people, and then when you see there are a lot of people to feed, then you're like, yes, this is great. So that's like the beggars, So he says, so those are a lot, and if you're happy about them, then his kind of rhetoric here is that therefore those assailants, those who come and abuse you with their words or with their actions, they're comparatively few. And in fact, then here he introduces one aspect of karma. Karma is not just about, last life I did this life I did that. As I said, that's the surface level. And the more subtle level of karma, cause and effect, is as I've been discussing. Seeing that suffering and happiness, it's all based on cause and effect. That's the more subtle point. Anyway, here he's emphasizing the more obvious point. He says, and so in any case, people will not harm me if I have not harmed others in the past. So he's talking about the more general. So he says, even these people who are harming me now must be at some point I harmed them. But in any case, 107, he says, so now, it's like I don't even need to go anywhere. These jewels have arrived. This is so completely opposite from how we always feel. We feel so outraged, when someone brings trouble to us. He said, I didn't go looking for it, they brought it to me. It's like, I'm minding my own business, and this person comes and yell at me. If you can be so transformed by Shantideva, the next time that happens, you're like, I don't even need to go anywhere. The jewels have been delivered. I don't even need to go anywhere. This wish-fulfilling jewel has arrived. This is how he wants us to be able to feel. So my enemies are helpers in my Bodhisattva work. Oh, please come in, have tea. I'll serve you some food. Rather than, this is so unfair. I didn't even, I'm just minding my own business here, drinking my coffee, reading my newspaper. And this trouble arrived. He says they are not trouble. They are your preceptors. They are the cause of your Kshanti arising. So 106 and 107. Khenpo Kumpel's commentary on 106 brings a different emphasis on these two lines. For if I do no harm to others, others do no injury to me. Yeah? Here he emphasizes, he says, now also then remember that now you have taken the Bodhisattva vow and you are training as a Bodhisattva. So then as a Bodhisattva, if assailants come to you, if those who want to cause harm, whether verbal harm, physical harm, they come to you. As long as you remember that you are practicing, you are a practicing Bodhisattva, you are one with the Bodhisattva aspiration, and remember, under no circumstance should you cause harm. The power of your not harming will have a positive effect even on those who have come to cause you harm. So do not respond to harm with harm. Understand that, since we have the Bodhisattva vow, and if we keep to our vow, even those who have come to cause us harm, they can be transformed by the power of our practice. There's the story of this one monk. I think this is Japan. He went somewhere in the daytime. When he came back, for some reason, I don't remember what, but maybe someone tried to rob his little house and temple. And as a result, they burnt his place, more or less, burnt it down. But the four walls are still standing. So then he came in and he sat down. I'm sure initially kind of this loss, But then he looked up the sky and he could see it's a full moon, Then he says, oh, well, at least now I have a better view of the moon. I'm sure if someone comes along and volunteer to build him a new roof, he's going to say, yeah, good, then at least now, the snow is not going to fall on my head. Now, we might think that we are so clever and say, this is all just double talk, you're just saying things to make it better. Well, in samsara, everything is either half empty or half full. So now we need to make some choices. Are we going to choose happiness or are we going to choose suffering? If you choose suffering, then you walk around with everything being half empty. If you choose happiness, then you can walk around and everything will be half full. So now let's take a short break. And then when we come back, maybe if there are some questions or discussion, or then we'll probably finish this section today. Let's take a short break.
Wage jware mum, 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 wage jware mum. Wage jware mum, 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 wage jware mum. Wage jware mum, 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 wage jware mum. Wage jware mum, 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 wage jware mum. Wage jware mum, 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 wage jware mum. Wage jware Joare Mum Wage 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 Joare 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 Wage Joare Mum Wage.
So let's see if there are any questions, comments. Hello? Anybody out there? Still awake?
Dr. Lai,
Yes.
I think it's also useful to see that these external obstacles do not arise randomly, but through they themselves are the result of causes, and they can be the causes for us to practice Shanti.
Yes, yes. The whole web of causes and conditions are so complex on the one hand and so amazing on the other hand, you know. Yeah, so if the interpreters can translate May's comment. I'm just now looking at in the chat. Cesar says, but habits sometimes throw us into suffering. Sometimes? No, all the time. Habits, you know, these habitual patternings, you know, we have habitualized habits of suffering. So then it will just continue. It's on autopilot. The mechanics of these habits of suffering is so programmed in us. So to practice the path, to use modern expression, maybe the path should be called, you know, like network. So we've been networked like an electric circuit, you know, like between you turning on your switch, you know, and the light, you know, coming on, it's like instantaneous. Although we know it's not instantaneous, it's just the time is so brief that we think is instantaneous. That's how we are. We think suffering arises instantaneously. It's not instantaneous, you know. There's a whole network. There's a whole, you know, chain of cause and effect. And that's mostly shaped by habits. So we call bhakta, you know, habitual propensities. Now, bhakta is not all bad news, because there's also virtuous bhakta, virtuous karmic propensities. So that's when we apply the path. We reroute the circuit. There's a comment, I think, by Linda. It says, "and cut desire?" question mark. I think maybe this has to do with when we were talking about, when mental defilements have turned up, if we know how to skillfully handle them and use them, even that enemy, mental defilements, can become a cause for us to give rise to something positive. Yes, of course, if desire can be cut, that's good. But also, I want to say that premature cutting of desire, thinking that you have cut desire, could also be misleading. To be able to forbear desire and work with it, as in see the faults. What are the faults of desire? I think if we do that first, and really look and see, what are the faults of desire? And in fact, you want to say, okay, what are the advantages of desire? It's okay, especially at the beginning of the path. It's not about like becoming desireless like that. It's more about skillfully choosing what desires are more likely to take us out of this circuit of dukkha, of suffering, and what desires will further pull us back into the circuit, right? So first it's about skillfully choosing. Then skillfully choosing, even that, then once we have ability to sort out better which desires are for the time being okay or even advantageous, and which desires are really just filled with faults to no end, then later we can even kind of understand how even the desire to be good, the desire to be Buddha, the desire to lead all beings away from suffering, we are able to look at what are the faults in those desires. But that's for much later. Prematurely cutting those desires might be part of the prison system's, what I call, the Martha Stewart Committee, to improve your prison environment so that you don't think of jailbreaking. Sorry, I don't know if there's Spanish or Chinese equivalents of Martha Stewart. So the translators, you'll need to figure out how to explain that. And Kathy is generously expressing her gratefulness for these teachings. And so I also want to express my gratefulness for being able to spend time with all of you on this series of teachings. Shantideva's teachings have, of course, become very well known, and there are so many chances of taking these teachings from various sources. But thanks to the interdependence of you guys turning up, then, I have a reason to turn up. Otherwise, as much as, I'm capable of talking to no end, if each time nobody is out there, after a while, it also gets boring. Verse 108, 109, basically 108 to 111 is sort of like, you could say, Shantideva further exaggerating. Or at least for us, it feels like that, So 108, he says, so if you have grown in your Kshanti, thanks to these annoying things, annoying people, annoying situations, then, in fact, you should offer the result of your growth first to them. Not only should you not think, like, how dare they, I'm just sitting here minding my own business and they are bringing me this trouble, anything that is wrong is things done by others who bring to me, I'm innocent. I don't deserve this. Oh, this is a big word, I don't deserve this, Shantideva takes it to another level, which says, what? We're not even talking about deserve here. Now we need to see, how that whatever growth we have in patience, in Kshanti, in fact, we should offer them to those who obstruct us. So our opening recitation, all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path. It's saying that especially those we offer the results of our growth. Then in the 8 verses mind training, the very first verse, it says, these wish-fulfilling jewels that are sentient beings. They are even more precious than the wish-fulfilling jewels. Hard to see that, you know. Some days you say, okay, enough, too many jewels, you know, can you all just kind of back off a little bit, you know, stop delivering them. Omar, can you please share in the chat the link to the 2 teachings that Javier recently put on the Dugong Dhammakirti on the 8 verses mind training teachings, if you can share that. So for those who want to listen, there's 2 recordings that have been located by our team that is too short, well, short by Buddhist standards, I suppose. Teachings on the 8 verses of mind training, in which the first verse says, you know, sentient beings are more precious than wish-fulfilling jewels, especially those who are most annoying, that they're really precious. I like to tell this one time we had a visiting teacher, and everything was going really nice, really well. And towards the end of that program, we finished early enough so that we could clean up and everything. And then I had to go back and cook, you know, dinner, and some people are coming over for this visiting teacher. So right when I was thinking that things are going so well and I can go home and make this wonderful meal, somebody who participated in the teaching decided that it's time for her to complain about urban Dharma to me, and particularly complain about me. Because the main complaint was that I'm not willing to give her a text that she wants, that we say, you know, is for those who commit to a particular program that takes place on Wednesday night, which is now what's called the Dugong Dhammakirti Sangha. Then she proceeded to just talk about how, you know, like it was very early. This is almost like, you know, 8 years ago when Urban Dharma first turned up. So that's the context too, you know. She's like you are starting a cult. How come there are no pictures of the Karmapa at your center? Also based on misunderstanding, you know, she thinks, oh, we are Kagyu, therefore Karmapa must be our boss. It's like, how come there's no picture of Karmapa at your center? I'm like, what? And I tried to explain, and it's like, what about the Dalai Lama? It's like, you know, photographs didn't turn up until fairly recently. You know, for the longest time, temples, you know, don't have photos of lamas. Anyway, you know, she had one complaint after another, and I sat there, you know, And then, oh, I was like, oh, yeesh. And then I was like, I have to go, you know. But the beautiful part was then when she finished complaining, and also I said, you know, I can't talk now. She said, of course, you don't want people to hear. And that was when I said, okay, let's sit down. You complain anything. So everybody was around, you know, sweeping the floor, pretending to not hear what's going on. She complained. I was getting like, but I know how to behave myself. Then finally she left. And right after she left, one of our members who have been sweeping came over to me and said, that jewel is so precious, isn't she? I almost wanted to strangle her. But again, you know, enough going, yes, indeed, that jewel is so precious. So sometimes, yes, you feel like you have an abundance of jewels in your life, you know. And sometimes you might have to temporarily say, you know, I have enough jewels for now. As long as you don't forget that there are jewels, you know. They are wish-fulfilling jewels. It's okay sometimes to say, you know, okay, for now, enough wish-fulfilling jewels. You can shorten the story, okay? My storytelling is always very long.
Sí, me gustaría hacer una pregunta, formular alguna pregunta, sí. Mira, en primer lugar, hay momentos en que me cuesta un poco tener claridad sobre la pregunta, pero ahora que Jon habla de Kashanti y paciencia, paciencia es como que fuera una base para el desarrollo de Kashanti. Kashanti como el entendimiento más profundo de las causas que nos provocan las emociones aflictivas o los conflictos. Pero junto a eso, si entendí bien lo que Kashanti es, que es una mayor comprensión o como que nuestra ignorancia disminuyera sobre ese interrelacionamiento, a veces se usa indiscriminadamente obstáculo y obstrucción. Entonces, a mí me confunde el enemigo como una obstrucción o como un obstáculo. Porque es decir, no acabo de entender la diferencia entre obstrucción y obstáculo. No sé si la obstrucción tiene que ver con el mundo interno y los obstáculos son los que desencadenan nuestras obstrucciones, ¿sí? Entonces, estas son las dos cosas que a mí me quedan ahorita.
Dr. Lee? Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. There is a question in the Spanish room. Question is, there's moments from Irma, okay? There are moments where it's difficult to have clarity about the difference between patient and Kashanti. That's the first the comment. It seems to her that common patients could be like the base, the ground for the development of Kashanti, while Kashanti is an understanding of the things that causes the emotions, the afflictive emotions and conflicts. And going along with that kind of concept.
So hold on one second. I'm not so skilled at translating. So let me repeat your question so that Wei Ting can translate into Chinese before I forget what you said. You guys are very skilled. I'm not. Your power of memory is better than mine. So Irma, Wei Ting, I know you cannot hear. This is the mystery of Zoom arrangements. They don't want the interpreters to hear each other. Anyway, so the first part of this is Irma saying that making this observation that so there is a difference between ordinary patients and Kashanti, and it's not so easy necessarily to tell the difference between the two, but she feels that perhaps, you know, ordinary patients can serve as a way for then Kashanti to develop. Because Kashanti then is on the basis of what we ordinarily think of as patience, but introduces also understanding. Then with understanding, you are able to forbear. So yeah, so that's the first part. Yes, go ahead, Claude.
And the second part is like considering that if I understood, if I've understood well, sometimes the words like obstacle.
Claudia, can you hold on? So Wei Ting, go ahead and translate that first part. Yeah. Okay, Claudia, you continue.
Okay, and sometimes the words obstacle and obstruction are used in the same way, and she gets confused. Like if sometimes the obstacles is the enemy, or it seems like the obstruction should be something more internal and obstacle is something from the external world. So sometimes she doesn't understand. She says that she doesn't understand the difference between these two concepts.
Okay. Yeah. Then following from that, she said, so the words obstacles and obstruction, she was wondering if I'm using it or if the tradition is using it in a way that signify like two different groups, you know, maybe one is more external, one is more internal. So she was wondering if there's something like that, obstacles, obstruction, enemies. So the question is does the tradition or me perhaps making a distinction between these terms? And so the first part, how, you know, ordinary patients can become a basis for developing Kashanti, absolutely. So we have to go from there, kind of step by step. Then the second one, actually, no, they are just used. You know, there's no specific different terms for different. Basically, obstacles, obstructors, enemies, whatever it is that is standing in our way for achieving what we want. Now, whether what we want, you know, is milk for your coffee or enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. Whatever they may be, outside, inside, in between, it's basically, there are different words used, you know, gate, you know, like obstacles or obstructors. Then da, enemies. But they're just different expressions talking about the same thing. So 109. Yeah. So 109, he says, and if I say my foes, my enemies, should not be honored, because when they bring trouble to me, they're not thinking, oh, I will help them grow Kshanti, I will help them advance spiritually. So I'm not going to be grateful to them, because actually their intention is to cause harm. They have no intention to benefit me. Then Shantideva said, actually, if you want to think of it that way, if your reasoning is that way, he says, actually, the sacred Dharma also, the Dharma itself doesn't have the intention, oh, I'm going to benefit Claudia, oh, I'm going to benefit Tracy. The Dharma doesn't have that, So it says, then in that way, why do you respect the Dharma? Now, of course, he's talking to his monks who already have tremendous respect for Dharma. So his point is like, if you respect the Dharma, which is the direct cause of your wellness, then you should also respect these troublemakers, who are the direct cause of your development of Kshanti. 110, he says, he continues, he says, now you might say then, so the 109 is saying, neither the Dharma nor these troublemakers are motivated by wanting to help you. Then 110, he says, he's responding to perhaps then somebody saying, well, now, unlike the Dharma, which, yes, I grant you, the Dharma doesn't have like intentionality. I want to benefit this person. But where the difference between troublemakers and Dharma is that troublemakers actually say, hey, I'm going to harm this person. Yeah. Then Shantideva says, you might protest in this way. You might say this way. And therefore, I'm not going to be nice to them. But then here he says, but if if these troublemakers are only good to you in the way that doctors are good to you, heal you, make you better, and then again, you have no opportunities to really develop Kshanti. 111 says, it's precisely because there are those who are full of malice, full of like resentment, jealousy, or whatever towards me, Only when they appear in that form do I have the chance to cultivate and magnify Kshanti. And therefore, they are the direct cause of my Kshanti. In fact, elsewhere, it says, in fact, those who give you Dharma, as precious as they are, and the tradition will always tell us, how precious they are. The teachers, those who give us Dharma are so unbelievable, and you have to so appreciate them, all of that, it says, but unless you have opportunities to apply the Dharma, all that stuff is useless. So actually these troubles, whether troubles that don't have direct human causes or troubles that come with humans delivering them, we should have gratitude towards all of this, which is the complete opposite of how we normally operate, which is why we need this. If you just look for things that are ordinarily easy, already the way things are, then confusion continues. Yes, so today we will end here at verse 111. So on Tuesday, we will continue to the next section. And those of you who can stay a few minutes after the dedication, please stay. I want to share some things with you. I'm not going to live stream this last section to Facebook because, anyway, it's nothing bad. It's just I'm not in the habit of publicly trying to fundraise, but it's a project I want to share with you, those of you who are in this Zoom. Anyway, let's do the Bodhicitta dedication at the end.
Chanchu Semchu Rinpoche Mage Banam Ge Gyurje Geba Nyam Pa Me Pa Yam Gone Gong Du Bel War Sho. Okay, thank you. Now let me share screen, what I want to share with you. Hold on a second.
Dr. Lai, so
Yes.
should I stop recording?
Yeah. Go ahead and stop recording. This is not necessary.